In a sleek, sunlit office lobby, Caroline, calm and confident, standing there while a focused Jake thought that with his 10 essential tips, he could soon become the life of any gathering. In a sleek office corridor buzzing with quiet tension, Jake, uneasy and clutching his headphones, stood opposite the composed Caroline as an unseen voice laid out the first tip, that maintaining eye contact signals true attention, hinting at the struggle between his anxious demeanor and the calm professionalism surrounding him. With quiet tension, Jake, a self-conscious young man haunted by anxious thoughts, glanced nervously to the side, sensing with unease that the woman standing close beside him might be watching his every move. Caroline greeted Jake with a cheerful question about his weekend, prompting him to reply hesitantly that his own had been good before nervously attempting to return the question. Standing there, Caroline's eyes sparkled as she cheerfully recounted to Joanna how she and her husband had planned a delightful fishing trip to the lake, only to be foiled by the unruly weather. Suddenly, the tense atmosphere shifted as Jake, his embarrassment evident, turned away from the cheerful conversation and quickly entered into the elevator as it shut in front of him. In the elevator, Jake sat hunched over with headphones clamped tightly to his ears, his hand pressed to his forehead as waves of desperate frustration washed over him, and he silently questioned what was wrong with himself. Framed by the cold steel of elevator doors, Jake stood motionless, headphones sheltering him from the world as a heavy sense of difficulty settled over his pensive expression. In the fluorescent-lit cubicle maze, a tense energy crackled as 4 office workers clustered together in heated conversation while Jake, frustrated and isolated, removed his glasses and sat apart at his desk. We then transitioned to somewhere else in an opulent hall bathed in muted light. Jake stood at the center of a cheerful gathering, his gaze meeting the eyes of others, while Adam maintained a calm composure. Moving along, we come back to Jake, who is in thoughts thinking about old memories in the quiet hush of the archery range. Jake, an introverted young man searching for confidence, drew his bowstring taut, his eyes narrowed with unwavering focus as memories of his childhood sports flickered through his mind. On a quiet archery range, the air thrummed with concentration as arrows struck the targets in rapid succession, their sharp impacts marking a display of remarkable precision. In the dim solitude of an empty office, Jake sat hunched over his cluttered desk, the weight of his isolation pressing down as he silently admitted to himself that the world felt unforgiving for someone like him. As morning light seeped through the blinds, Jake sat alone at his desk, the gentle hum of his computer marking the quiet beginning of another reflective workday at 9:02 a.m. At 10:24 a.m., in the hush of a dimly lit room, Jake sat alone at his desk, the glow of the computer screen casting thoughtful shadows across his contemplative face. 12:35 p.m., in the quiet solitude of his cluttered room, Jake sat alone at his desk, the pale glow of the computer screen reflecting the focused intensity in his eyes as he worked in deep concentration. In the stark fluorescent light of the office room, Jake's eyes widened in surprise as Adam, effortlessly calm, raised a hand in casual greeting, uncertainty flickering between them. In the bustling office, 2 men strolled side by side with easy smiles, as Jake cheerfully announced that the group was heading out for lunch and invited the one and only Jake, as Bertram who lingered behind with a faint expression of exclusion. Jake's mind wanders off thinking how Adam was always the attention grabber and knew how to make conversations and always brighten the mood when he appeared, as Jack exclaimed that he was the complete opposite of him. He thinks that Adam's lively words always filled the air as Caroline, Jake, and Joanna gathered around the table, the confident energy making it effortless for Jake to simply listen and let the conversation flow, admiring like the loser he was. In a quiet, contemplative moment, Jake weighed the idea of accepting an invitation, his thoughtful gaze suggesting that having Adam there might make things feel less awkward than usual. Then after tinkering with his Gara, Jake stood with his eyes closed and a gentle smile, exuding a rare sense of peace as he rested one hand behind his head, agreed to join the 2 for lunch. In the quiet glow of a corporate hallway, Jake stood between Adam and Bertram, each man masked in calm anticipation as the elevator doors slid open with a crisp chime, signaling the moment they had all been waiting for. In the elevator we are greeted with 2 beautiful women. Caroline, the beauty from HR, stood confidently beside Joanna, who Jake had seen earlier as her calm presence hinting at an introduction that would quietly shift the dynamic between them. As Caroline's poised introduction lingered in the air, Jake stepped forward in front of the elevator doors, adjusting his glasses as he nervously thought to himself that this situation couldn't get any worse. Jake then begins simping as he states that the confident woman with orange hair tied in a high ponytail and glasses was one of the stars of the company and always lit up the room with each step she took, her subtle smile hinting at the composed assurance that made her stand out among her peers. Inside the cramped elevator, Caroline turned to the confident blonde man with an amused glint, warning him that his frequent use of that device might just cost him his job as the others looked on, each reacting in their own silent way. In a tense, fluorescent-lit elevator, Caroline stood confidently between Jake and Joanna, her voice steady as she extended a pleasant thanks for having them join lunch. As Caroline's words lingered in the charged air, Jake offered a sly smile, his thoughts turning inward as he wondered, with a trace of amusement, why she always avoided saying his name despite surely knowing it. Jake then goes on to say Caroline, while observant, held Jake's arm as he quietly thought to himself that her mind often seemed to wander elsewhere, his tone laced with worry. As they were in the cramped elevator, it began to shake and halted mid-floor. 5 colleagues froze in unease as Jake, startled, questioned the sudden disturbance, and Adam calmly reassured everyone that it was likely just an electrical issue. A sudden, earth-shaking rumble tore through the tense silence as the 5 figures, Adam, Caroline, Bertram, Jake, and Joanna, braced themselves, anxiety and determination flickering across their faces in the chaos. In a tense moment crackling with anticipation, Jake fell forward with wavering focus, as Adam manly Chad self-protected Caroline as she panicked nervously, Adam then instructing Jake to hit the emergency button. In a cramped room thick with tension, Jake slammed his hand onto the glowing emergency button, as Adam watched in despair and Caroline, fists clenched, shouted in frustration that nothing was happening. In the suffocating darkness, 5 figures crouched low, their faces etched with alarm as Joanna demanded to know what had happened to the lights. In a shadowed expanse illuminated only by the glow of a digital projection, 4 figures, Jake, Caroline, Adam, and Joanna, stood shoulder to shoulder, their expressions tense with anticipation as the system announced the initiation of the 93rd universe and the beginning of their tutorial. As the city trembled with anticipation, people from around the world experienced the same screen, gazed upward at a radiant system message that announced the initiation of the 93rd universe and the commencement of its tutorial sequence, tension shimmering in the air around them. Amid the silent expanse of space, an unknown person stood atop a jagged outcrop, his gaze fixed with intrigue on a glowing message that floated among drifting planets and asteroids as he quietly wondered about the mysteries of the 93rd universe. In a dimly lit room thick with tension, Jake sat across from a demon-looking figure, his confusion evident as he hesitantly attempted to break the silence and initiate conversation. Inside the room, a mysterious, armored, godlike figure sat in calm contemplation, his imposing presence radiating an ominous stillness. As he welcomed Jake and introduced himself as the helper for the tutorial and that he would explain what was going on. Jake, the introverted loser, was shocked at the sight before his eyes. His newfound strength now clashed with uncertainty, stared wide-eyed, his voice erupting in disbelief as he demanded to know what stood before him. The entity, mysterious, mechanical figure, materialized a countdown timer, his grave presence setting a foreboding tone, as he informed the unseen newcomer that their introduction to this new reality would be brief and dictated by the dwindling minutes. Without warning, Jake's quiet focus was shattered as a sudden digital chime signaled an unexpected system message, leaving him wide-eyed with surprise before the glowing screen. The blue system message flickered into clarity, revealing Jake's basic stats and unclaimed potential as he studied the information with steady composure. As he absorbed the details on the glowing interface, the system neatly organized every attribute, strength, agility, and more, while the tally of free points remained at 0, underscoring his current limits. Then, as curiosity sharpened his gaze, Jake whispered in awe, asking what this phenomenon was, and the entity responded by presenting a clear rundown of his stats and essential details for him to grasp. In a shadowed chamber illuminated by otherworldly light, Jake sat across from a calm, enigmatic entity who informed him that their universe had only just reached the threshold for entry into the vast multiverse, assuring that further secrets would be revealed only as he needed them. Amid a swirling cosmic expanse lit by distant planets and stars, Jake stood lost in contemplation, his thoughts teetering between awe and disbelief at the surreal scene before him. In a vast cosmic expanse, Jake sat at a sleek futuristic table, his focused gaze locked on the entity figure who confronted him with the solemn declaration that it was time for him to select between different classes. Suspended in a cosmic void aglow with swirling stars, Jake stood before a dazzling array of floating weapons, his eyes reflecting both caution and wonder, as he wondered aloud which one he was truly meant to choose. A quiet room suffused with thoughtful intensity, Jake scrutinized the intricacies of class distinctions, weighing their stat bonuses and proficiencies as he considered how straightforward the options seemed, his mind already drawn toward the allure of the caster's path. Suddenly, as the cosmic backdrop shimmered around him, Jake pointed forward with newfound resolve, announcing to himself that he had finally spotted what he was searching for. A moment pulsing with decision, the glowing system message box illuminated the screen to confirm that the Archer class had been chosen. Bathed in the eerie glow of a holographic system message, Jake stood before the mysterious entity figure, who calmly announced their entry into the Great Forest Tutorial Zone, prompting Jake to question the meaning behind this unfamiliar place. The entity then explained deep within a dense and shadowed forest where tension crackled in the air, that serious danger lies ahead but with great opportunities as we see two fierce red dinosaurs faced each other, one unleashing a guttural roar while as the other followed suit. From that chilling sentence, we then see a monstrous boar with glowing red eyes and blood-stained tusks emerged from the darkness, its hulking form looming over a bloodied axe as the entity explained that these beasts prowled the forest in search of prey, and that slaying them would reward tutorial points, unlocking ever greater powers. A swirling haze of crimson and violet mist, ominous silhouettes of a boar, a rat, a majestic antlered deer, and a watchful bird emerged, heralding the presence of mysterious spirits in the gloom. As the spectral animals faded into the swirling galaxy, the entity emerged, his voice echoing with grave authority, as he revealed that the tutorial would span 64 days and the survivors' rewards would depend on their TP, but he warned that no further information could be disclosed. In the neon-lit hush of a virtual chamber, Jake, his hair raising as he is about to go Super Saiyan, stood transfixed, surprise flickering across his face as he realized with a surge of excitement that he had just chosen the Archer class and could feel adrenaline coursing through him. Then, as adrenaline surged through Jake, his lips curled into a menacing smirk, stating how good this is going to feel as radiating a chilling confidence that seemed to hint at sinister intentions. Bathed in a cool, anticipatory glow, a prominent system message box materialized at the heart of the screen, signaling the completion of the introduction and inviting the user to begin the tutorial. Then shrouded in drifting clouds, a vast and mysterious forest stretched endlessly, ancient pillars rising solemnly above the treetops to mark the beginning of a forgotten realm. On a jagged expanse beneath a brooding sky, 6 figures, alert, disoriented, and tense, scanned their unfamiliar surroundings as Joanna demanded an explanation and Casper anxiously questioned where they had been taken. On the contrary, standing there, Jake stood with a bow slung confidently in hand, a smug smirk crossing his face as he assessed his own skill and quietly acknowledged that his equipment was impressive. Jake then began looking at the new world he had just been taken to, acknowledging its size was massive as one could get lost. Going forward from here, the team gathered with tense resolve as Adam, voice sharp with urgency, commanded the group to breathe. His determination echoed in the anxious faces watching him. In a sudden, tense moment, the earth beneath trembling feet began to crack and shift as someone cried out in alarm that the ground was moving. As the ground continued to tremble, Jake urgently commanded everyone to stay calm, his determined voice cutting through the tension as Joanna gripped her staff defensively and Caroline watched with growing worry. Elsewhere we see a group, led by a man with his sword drawn and flanked by many other experienced-looking foes, pressed cautiously into the shadowed forest, each step marked by tense vigilance as it became clear that far more than beasts prowled these woods. A shadowed forest path, the random man led his tense group forward, his alert warning that someone might be following them causing a woman to listen anxiously and the others to brace themselves for danger. Tightening his grip on the sword, the man stepped forward with unwavering resolve and demanded that their hidden adversary reveal themselves, his challenge echoing through the tense forest as the group watched in anxious anticipation. In the shadowy hush of the forest, we then see a blonde-haired boy step out, injured and desperate, raised his trembling hands in surrender as he pleaded for his attackers to hold back, explaining in a shaky voice that he was only searching for his lost party. In a tense clearing edged by shadows, the cautious blonde lifted his hands in a calming gesture toward the stern armored man and the green-haired woman gripping her staff, assuring them that there was no threat. The blonde boy then begins to explain that him and his party were running from a beast as they got split up, his face marked by fresh scratches, paused to rub his chin in quiet contemplation, determination hardening his expression as he weighed his next move. As the purple-haired girl approached with a steady calm, the armored man turned to her as she voiced her concern that the boys' group could be anywhere, her wary tone edged with the hope she might offer reassurance. Pondering this for a moment, the man then said with his gaze unwavering and grip tight on his weapon's handle as he sheathed it, broke the tense silence with a resolute proposal that the boy should stay with them for the time being. As the tense decision lingered in the air, the scene shifted to a tranquil forest where a green-haired beauty, radiating gentle reassurance, placed a comforting hand on the boy's shoulder and softly suggested that he join the party, easing his surprise with her calming presence. Bathed in the dappled forest light, his face brightened with genuine gratitude as he thanked the group, his voice carrying a warmth that softened the lingering tension between them. Suddenly we then cut to a blood-stained dagger hanging ominously from the boy's belt, its presence heightening the tension as his story holds more secrets than he is willing to spill. In a dense forest shrouded in uncertainty, the adventurers huddled together, tension palpable in the air as they grappled with their precarious situation. Moments later, a wave of anxiety swept through the group as Caroline voiced her fears, her eyes darting with worry. Thick with tension, Casper urgently shared the shocking details of his recent encounter, prompting concerned glances among his companions. Moments later, Bertram listened intently, his serious demeanor reflecting the gravity of the situation. Meanwhile, Jake remained reserved yet visibly worried, fully absorbing the implications of Casper's revelation. As a wave of unease washed over Caroline, she reacted to the escalating urgency in Casper's voice, her concern palpable in the atmosphere. In a sunlit clearing, a blond man in armor offered reassurance to his anxious companions, his determination cutting through the lingering tension. Moments later, he encouraged them to take things one step at a time, hoping to calm their racing hearts. As he spoke, Caroline listened closely, her worried expression betraying her inner turmoil, while Casper absorbed the support with a hint of uncertainty flickering in his eyes. A sun-drenched clearing, Jake stood confidently with a quiver of arrows slung over his shoulder, his calm demeanor commanding the attention of his three companions, who admired him with a mix of respect and awe. As Adam shared his thoughts on their next move, Jake couldn't help but express his admiration for Adam's natural leadership, his voice filled with genuine respect. Two listened intently, feeling a surge of confidence in their journey under Adam's guidance, while absorbing every word and contemplating the challenges ahead. A determined group moved with purpose as Adam confidently led them, strategizing their survival. Then, he emphasized the need to find shelter, water, and food, ensuring everyone understood the plan ahead. Adam stayed alert, ready to assist as they pressed deeper into the wilderness. Casper calmly handed a dead bird to Caroline, as Jake observed that their situation likely mirrored that of other survivors. Then, he thoughtfully shared his insights about the possibility of finding others like them, igniting a flicker of hope amidst their challenges. The sunlight filtered through the trees. Joanna, cloaked and resolute, successfully channeled magical energy through her glowing staff, her eyes wide with amazement at her newfound ability. Adam, who was a determined man in armor, grappled with a large beast by its antlers, showcasing the strength and strategy of their balanced party. Tension filled the air, an arrow sliced through the sky, its trajectory unwavering as it hurtled toward an unseen target. The arrow struck with a sickening thud, leaving Adam frozen in shock as he stared at the large deer collapsing before him. Jake stood alert, gripping his bow tightly as he surveyed the area around him with a wary expression. After shooting the deer, Caroline concentrated intently as she harnessed her burgeoning healing magic to mend the wounds of her shirtless ally, Adam. Moments later, the glow from her hands enveloped him, sparking a sense of surprise and trust in his eyes as the pain began to fade. In the stillness of a moonlit forest, the group gathered around a glowing campfire, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames as they embraced a moment of somber reflection. Moments later, the group's steadfast leader sat in silence, his pensive gaze fixed on the fire as he strategized their next steps. As the campfire crackled softly in the night, warmth enveloped the group with Caroline offering a sincere compliment to Jake about his impressive archery skills. Then, he listened intently, his calm demeanor reflecting the flickering flames as Adam absorbed the friendly exchange, the atmosphere thick with camaraderie and support. Jake sat close to Caroline, his face flushing with surprise as he realized she recognized him. Then, her friendly gaze met his, filling the air with an awkwardly hopeful tension that made his heart race. Jake sat lost in thought, his burdened expression revealing the weight of leadership pressing heavily on him. Then, he admitted his vulnerability, expressing a deep need for support amidst the challenges they faced together. Jake and Adam, as they sat in silence, the weight of unspoken troubles hanging heavily in the air. Moments later, Adam placed a comforting hand on Jake's shoulder, his presence a silent reassurance amidst the melancholy that enveloped them. Jake with anxiety radiating from his every gesture. Moments later, he confessed his struggle with social interactions, revealing his self-doubt in the presence of two more confident companions. As the fire crackled softly, three figures huddled together, their faces cast in shadows that mirrored their serious expressions. Adam declared that the world outside had changed, asserting that the old rules no longer held relevance. Jake listened intently, his alert posture revealing his wariness of the implications. Meanwhile, Caroline sat thoughtfully, contemplating the weight of Adam's words as the flickering flames danced around them. As the night deepened, each lost in their thoughts while the world outside remained silent and still. Then, the watchful eyes of one remained alert, ensuring the safety of the group as the others settled into a calm and restful state. Caroline sat across from Jake, her voice trembling with the weight of grief as she recounted the harrowing moment of separation during chaos. Jake listened intently, his somber expression reflecting the emotional turmoil surrounding their conversation. Moments later, the silence between them deepened, filled with unspoken fears and the lingering echoes of what could have been. As the campfire crackled under a canopy of stars, Caroline leaned closer to Jake, her curiosity igniting a bold question about his love life. Startled, he listened intently, the warmth of the flames contrasting with the unexpected nature of her inquiry. Jake firmly declared that he could no longer hold onto the past, his determination cutting through the somber atmosphere. Moments later, Caroline sat in silence, absorbing the weight of his words. Jake then though about his past, their laughter echoing through the air as fond memories of friendship enveloped them. Moments later, Jake reflected on the bond he shared with Andy and Madeline, recalling the warmth and trust that defined their relationship. Jake tenderly embraced his past girlfriend, his heart racing as he confessed the depth of his feelings. Jake and his girlfriend sat closely on the couch, enveloped in a bittersweet atmosphere as he reminisced about their happiest years together, though uncertainty flickered in his eyes. As he entered the room, Jake's worried gaze quickly fell upon a discarded dress and shoes on the floor, hinting at a troubling presence that had gone unnoticed. Joanna wiped away her tears as she struggled with the weight of her emotional turmoil. Moments later, she confided her inner conflict, revealing that thoughts of her husband twisted her stomach with anxiety, as the heaviness of her past began to seep into the present. Jake sat beside her, his expression a mix of uncertainty and contemplation, as he wrestled with the weight of unspoken words. Moments later, the silence thickened between them, amplifying the heaviness of his hesitance while the figure remained withdrawn and silent, exuding a palpable air of sadness. Joanna stood tall with a glowing staff while another, alert and cautious, knelt in apprehension. Then, broke the silence, demanding attention and disrupting the intensity of the moment. She walked away, leaving behind a contemplative Jake who pondered the unexpected recognition he had received from his friends. Moments later, the weight of Adam's belief in his leadership potential and Joanna's newfound openness pressed on his mind, igniting a mix of hope and uncertainty within him. As he glanced back toward the figure, he felt a surge of determination, realizing that Caroline's acknowledgement of his name had transformed his role within the group. Jake stood cloaked in shadows, the weight of his thoughts pressing heavily as he contemplated the possibility of a new beginning. Moments later, his serious expression revealed the internal struggle of a man at a crossroads, grappling with the hope that perhaps things could indeed be different this time. A long, fading scream pierced the stillness of a dense, green forest, echoing through the trees and stirring an unsettling tension in the air. Jake surged forward, his grip tightening around the bough as determination radiated from him. In a shadowy forest, 3 armored men surrounded a cloaked woman, their menacing presence amplifying her anxious demeanor. Then, the leader, exuding confidence, addressed her with an unsettling calmness that heightened the tension in the air. As the imposing figure spoke, his companions stood guard, one amusement flickering in his eyes while the other remained stoic, weapon in hand, ready for any sudden movement. The men loomed over a woman on the ground, their menacing presence casting a dark pall over the scene. Moments later, the leader pressed for information with an intimidating glare, while his accomplices stood ready to back him up with cold detachment. As the woman recoiled from the brutal attack, her pain echoed through the oppressive atmosphere, revealing her defiance even in the face of such cruelty. Joanna stood frozen, her wide eyes reflecting a deep-seated fear as uncertainty enveloped her. Moments later, she confessed her ignorance, the tremor in her voice revealing her inner turmoil. The man stood poised to strike, his fierce grin revealing a defiance that sent shivers through the air. Moments later, he raised his weapon high, the impending attack signaling a clash of wills against the girl. The fierce warrior unleashed his relentless fury upon Joanna, the atmosphere thick with tension and fear. As the determined figure struck downwards, the retreating girl could only react in desperation, her eyes wide with terror at the impending blow. In a moment charged with intensity, a flurry of arrows sliced through the air, their swift movement contrasting sharply against the serene blue sky. Caught entirely off guard, one member felt a sharp pain as an arrow struck him in the neck, blood spurting from the wound and shattering the tense silence surrounding him. The second man stood resolutely, bracing himself as a torrent of arrows rained down around him. Moments later, he reacted with swift precision, blocking the lethal projectiles with a large weapon that glinted ominously in the tense atmosphere. Surprised by the sudden attack, he focused intently, knowing his survival depended on his quick reflexes. Two armored figures stood poised, weapons stained with crimson, as tension crackled in the air like a coiled spring. The determined leader shouted commands, urgency in his voice as he rallied his companion to pursue the unseen enemy. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath, amplifying the gravity of the moment as they prepared to charge into the darkness. Man propelled himself forward with unwavering resolve, his determination palpable as he reached out for what lay ahead. He stood alert, gripping his weapon tightly as he scanned the bushes with a worried expression, desperate to locate the enemy. In a tense moment within the shadowy forest, Jake, decisive and daring, sprang into action while the man, serious and observant, watched intently, bracing for the unfolding surprise move. In a shocking twist, Jake, with a furious glint in his eye, plunged an arrow into the man's neck from behind, leaving the unsuspecting victim in a state of disbelief. In a charged moment, a furious young man seized another with a fierce grip, his face contorted by raw anger as he confronted the source of his frustration. With a determined glare, the man threw Jake through the air, who was alarmed and desperately dodging on the ground amidst the shadowy trees of the forest. The man surged forward, brandishing a massive battle axe with fierce determination in his eyes. Moments later, he let out a primal roar, channeling all his energy into a powerful strike aimed at Jake. The two people faced off, the tension thick as one figure swung an axe with fierce determination while the other stood resolute, ready to block the impending blow. On a tense battlefield, Jake stood wide-eyed, caught off guard as he braced himself against a powerful strike aimed at him. Moments later, the weight of the heavy attack sent vibrations through his arms, leaving him struggling to maintain his defense. Getting distracted by Joanna lying unconscious on the ground, her cloak barely concealing the pool of blood beneath her. Moments later, the urgency of the scene deepened as someone frantically searched for the source of her injuries, demanding to know the whereabouts of the culprit responsible. Just then something caught Jake's attention as he looked from the corner of his eye. As Jake braced himself, alarm coursed through him when he spotted the second man charging fiercely with a large hammer, his fury palpable in the air. He was shocked even more as a large shadowy object loomed ominously overhead. Moments later, the palpable fear in his expression reflected the sudden realization that another threat had emerged. In a tense moment, an arrow sliced through the air, propelled by an unseen force, its trajectory a promise of impending conflict. As the clash of steel echoed through the forest clearing, Jake crouched behind the foliage, his heart racing with terror as he gripped his weapon, fearing for his life. In a moment heavy with intensity, Jake's face filled the frame, his narrowed eyes reflecting a fierce determination as he mentally prepared for his end. Just then, on a digital battlefield, Jake unleashed some dormant power as energy afterimages trailed behind him. The radiant glow illuminated the scene. A system message heralded the momentous awakening of a powerful bloodline, signifying a new chapter in the ongoing saga. As a palpable darkness enveloped the scene, Jake's eye glowed with a fierce red light, signaling the awakening of a long-buried power within him. The moment charged with urgency, Jake dodged swiftly, determination etched on his face as a heavy object plummeted toward the ground. On a tense battlefield, Jake's eyes narrowed as he prepared to confront the incoming danger. In a swift motion, he caught an arrow mid-air, demonstrating his quick reflexes and unwavering courage. As Jake caught the arrow, showcasing his powerful hidden power and aura, farming for nobody. Jake, resolute and skilled, unleashed a swift arrow that sliced through the air towards the man. Moments later, the arrow struck its target, causing him to collapse to the ground. Shock etched across his face as he clutched his chest. Jake stood frozen in disbelief as he stared at the bloodied hand that had caught him completely off guard, and how overwhelmingly strong he had become. Jake lunged desperately toward a sword lying on the ground, driven by a surge of urgency amidst the lingering shadows. Moments later, he executed a precise sword maneuver, deflecting the fierce onslaught of the enemy's battle axe that sliced through the air above him. Arrows flew like deadly rain as Jake stood resolute, his focused gaze unwavering against the onslaught. The tension thickened in the air as he braced himself, embodying determination in the face of overwhelming odds. Jake's heart raced as he narrowly dodged a deadly volley of arrows flying toward him. Jake stood resolutely over a blood-stained sword, the blood a testament to the fierce battle he had endured. Moments later, he defiantly challenged his opponent, his spirit unbroken despite the pain coursing through him. Emerging cautiously from the dense, shadowy forest into a small clearing, the remaining enemy remained alert and wary, scanning the area for any signs of danger. He surged forward with fierce determination, his knife glinting ominously in the dappled light. In the heat of a tense confrontation, the man seized Jake by the collar, his fierce determination evident as he asserted control over the startled figure. The young man, cornered and desperate, lunged forward with a knife raised high, fear etched across his face. Moments later, he demanded answers as adrenaline surged through him, propelling his frantic attack. In a tense forest clearing, Jake, fueled by anger, forcefully slammed the arrow into him, asserting his dominance over the stunned enemy. As this goes on, the maniac, as we can see, is still stabbing the man. I think we can all tell who the villain really is. In the heart of an ominous forest, a tense group huddled together, each member alert and ready to face any lurking dangers. Adam, filled with worry, called out to check on the safety of the two, his protective instincts evident in his stance. In the aftermath of a brutal encounter, two bloodied figures lay on the grass, one impaled and the other barely conscious, as shock hung heavy in the air. Stunned, Adam struggled to regain awareness, his mind racing to comprehend the grim scene that unfolded around him. The desolate battlefield, a bloody Jake lay on the ground, the remnants of his struggle etched into his features as he embraced a moment of triumph. In the aftermath of the fierce confrontation, the intensity in his eyes reflected a hard-won victory that seemed to resonate through the silence around him. Acting like Gojo, the scene is tense as the group huddles around Jake lying on the ground. One of them, clearly worried, asks, "Are you hurt? There's so much blood." The concerned voice belongs to a protective figure, checking on the wounded. As the group assesses the injury, the atmosphere thickens with concern and urgency. A tense atmosphere envelopes the scene as Jake stands, bloodied yet determined, clutching his cloak defensively. He protests, "I'm okay. None of it's mine." His voice cuts through the tension, revealing his desperation to assert his innocence amidst the chaos. On this page, confusion and alarm fill the air as Jake reacts to the shocking revelation. "What is all this? We get points for killing other survivors too," he exclaims, his voice laced with disbelief. In the midst of the chaos, a system message looms, revealing the harsh reality of their situation. The discovery of game mechanics has shifted the dynamic, leaving both characters grappling with the weight of their choices. In a moment of confusion, Jake grapples with the aftermath of the recent battle. Is this a new skill? What the hell is a bloodline? Adam, worried and uneasy, asks Jake, "Who were those guys? Why did they attack us?" His questions spill out, reflecting his bewilderment. The two discuss the unfolding situation, with Jake still trying to process everything that has happened. The air is thick with uncertainty as they navigate their next steps. In this urgent moment, a plan is being forged. The woman, resolute in her determination, Adam addresses the situation. "We need to reconsider our survival strategy. We'll find a safe place to hide," he declares, while Caroline focused on the task at hand. Meanwhile, the woman lies nearby, injured and vulnerable, concern etched on her face as she listens intently. Tension fills the air as Jake, bloodied and overwhelmed, stands next to a puzzled Adam. Then, out of nowhere, someone calls Jake. Jake, his concern evident. Jake's fearful expression reflects the gravity of the situation, leaving them both on edge as they grapple with the unfolding chaos. As Caroline walks away, a wave of concern washes over her. Why was Joanna alone? She questions, her unease palpable. Unbeknownst to her, Joanna lies on the ground, vulnerable and unseen, amplifying the tension of the moment. Jake's expression reveals his concern as he observes the woman nearby, sensing her anxiety. He realizes that she seems to need space, prompting his worried thoughts. The mood is thick with tension as he empathizes with her emotional state, reflecting his sensitive nature. In this urgent moment, Caroline expresses her deep concern. Her voice carries intensity as she warns, "Well, she's not doing well." The frantic energy in her demeanor reveals her anxious state, emphasizing the seriousness of the situation. In a moment of urgent crisis, Caroline expresses her frustration, questioning Jake about their dire predicament. "Her leg is too crushed for my healing, so what are we supposed to do?" Her voice is filled with desperation as she seeks a solution. Jake listens intently, his expression reflecting worry and uncertainty about the situation at hand. Tension fills the air as Jake confronts Caroline, his anger palpable. "Are you blaming me for this?" he questions, frustration evident in his tone. Adam, calm yet concerned, attempts to clarify, "No, you helped save her," but his sympathetic demeanor reflects the weight of the situation. Caroline steps in, acting as a mediator, her supportive presence aimed at defending Adam. The atmosphere is thick with unresolved emotions as the three navigate the complexities of friendship and blame amidst a crisis. In this tense moment, questions hang heavy in the air as one man confronts another. "Why would you let her go off alone? And why didn't you wake us up? What were you thinking, Jake?" The urgency and frustration in the voice cut through the atmosphere, demanding answers. Jake stands defensively, a worried expression etched on his face as he faces the barrage of questions. The weight of the situation is palpable as he grapples with the accusations thrown his way. In a tense moment, Jake stands there, visibly distressed and stained with blood. His voice trembles as he apologizes. Regret fills his eyes, reflecting the gravity of his actions. The atmosphere is thick with tension, leaving unspoken questions lingering, as the weight of his choices bears down on him. Adam confronts Jake, his voice sharp with concern. "Can you try giving it some thought next time? We're humans, not beasts who act without care. What if you had died out here?" As Caroline sits on the ground, visibly distressed, absorbing his words. Annoyed, Jake, frantic and remorseful, pleads that he already said sorry. His anger is palpable, begging for forgiveness after the confrontation. The weight of his words hangs heavy, echoing the sharp concern expressed moments earlier. As the scene unfolds, the emotional stakes continue to rise, leaving everyone on edge. In an intense moment, Caroline passionately voices her desperation, grappling with a haunting thought: what if Joanna had died? Her frantic expression reveals deep fear as she questions Joanna's safety. The weight of the earlier confrontation still lingers, amplifying the tension in the air. As Jake shouts for them to get a grip, his distressed expression and bloodied hand reveal his desperation. Reaching out with a frantic urgency, he embodies the weight of the moment, seeking connection amidst chaos. The atmosphere is charged, reflecting the emotional turmoil that has engulfed the group. Jake's voice trembles with urgency as he confronts the group, that Joanna only survived because of what I did. And if he took the time to wake them all up, who knows what would have happened? His anxious demeanor betrays the emotional burden he carries. Around him, the others listen intently. Jake's voice cuts through, filled with fury as he challenges the group, that those were real humans, not deer. And if they would have had the balls to take another person's life. His anger is palpable, confronting a moral dilemma that hangs heavily in the air. In a moment charged with urgency, he passionately gestures, delivering a motivational speech to the group, that the world has changed and they all need to stop expecting to have their hands held. His determined expression reflects the weight of his words, urging everyone to rise to the challenge before them. In a moment filled with tension, Bertram's frustration boils over as he seeks guidance. Asking Jake, what do you suggest they do? He demands, his anxiety palpable. His determined demeanor reflects the urgency of their situation, pushing the group to confront the challenges ahead. The protagonist confronts him with a serious expression, blood staining his face and clothes. With an unwavering gaze, he issues a challenge, declaring that they do whatever the fudge you need to level up and make it through this shit. His determination is palpable, pushing the listener to take action amidst the chaos surrounding them. Jake stands defiantly before a group of anxious companions. His voice cuts through the tension as he declares, to do what the system wants them to, and don't blame him just because they group haven't caught up. Jake's assertiveness challenges the group's doubts, pushing them to confront their fears. The next day we see Jake waking up as he calls out for Casper, his voice filled with surprisement and concern. Beside him, Casper sits attentively, exuding a calm demeanor despite the unease surrounding them. As Jake wakes up, a wave of concern washes over him. He wonders if his friends have abandoned him. His expression is filled with worry as he contemplates the situation, feeling a mix of anxiety and introspection. In this contemplative moment, Casper shares his thoughts with Jake, saying that some of them thought about it, but after a bit of talking, they all agreed. Casper's reflective demeanor suggests a deep consideration of their decision. As they sit together, the weight of their choices hangs in the air, binding them in shared resolve. The atmosphere is thick with introspection, a pivotal moment for the group as they navigate their alliance. A moment charged with seriousness, the protagonist listens silently as Casper told him that they each need to start carrying their own weight, he asserts. Just then we see Jake, desperate and panicked, shouts, "Joanna!" His alarm is palpable, showcasing his shock and focus in this critical moment. The weight of his words hangs in the air. Concern hangs heavily in the air as she stands with a staff, addressing a difficult decision regarding another's injury. Casper states that they couldn't figure out how to save her leg, so it seemed like the best option. And it was her idea, he explains assertively. Casper's words reflect the gravity of the situation and the weight of responsibility she carries. The injured leg looms as a symbol of the choices made in desperation. In this hopeful moment, the discussion shifts to Caroline's potential. Casper, analytical and optimistic, shares his thoughts with enthusiasm, that they're hoping once they level up, Caroline can learn some sort of regrowth magic. Jack thinks to himself how incredible Joanna is, and that she might just be the toughest out of all of us. His words reflect the belief in her strength and resilience. In the midst of a fierce battle, the group fights valiantly against large, menacing beasts. The atmosphere is intense as determination fills the air. One stands out, leading the charge with a focused gaze. The battle rages on, each member playing a crucial role, embodying strength and resilience as they face their formidable. Tension hangs in the air as silence stretches between them. Jake stands lost in thought, reflecting on the unspoken words since the previous night. His expression is pensive, yet there's a heaviness that weighs on him. Tension hangs in the air as Jake stands confidently, urging Casper to take a leap of faith. "Are you sure about this?" Casper asks, his grip on the rock tightening with uncertainty. "Yeah, just toss it at me," Jake replies, his assured demeanor pushing Adam closer to a risky decision. The moment teeters on the edge, capturing the weight of their choices. Tension fills the air as Jake prepares himself, focusing intently. "Okay, alright, Jake. Sense the incoming attack. Focus your breath," and Casper guides him with an encouraging tone, instilling a sense of determination. The atmosphere is thick with anticipation as the two ready themselves for what lies ahead. Then, while trying to understand his power, Jake is hit in the back with the mud ball, still grasping to understand how he sensed and fought so well the other night. In this tense moment, frustration bubbles as he questions the outcome, on why didn't it work, thinking that maybe the skill works on those with killing intent towards him. As the day comes to a close, Adam takes charge, suggesting that they call it for the day, and that the group needs to find shelter for tonight. Determined, he directs the group, while Jake listens intently, showing his support. The group pauses at the entrance of a cave, weighing their options for shelter. Adam, displaying determination, suggests that this looks like a safe spot and that they'll be covered from the rain, at least, while Jake thinks it'll limit the angle at which people could ambush us. Their cautious mood hangs in the air as they consider the cave's potential as refuge. Tension hangs in the air as Jake thinks that, as long as he stays alert, they should be safe from any more attacks. He asserts, his voice steady despite the looming uncertainty. As we cut to Joanna's leg hinting at danger from others. In a moment of reflection, Adam's playful voice cuts through the air. As he asks Jake if he is still thinking about last night, he teases, clearly enjoying the chance to poke at his friend's deep thoughts. Jake, pensive and reserved, remains lost in his own mind, his expression thoughtful as he contemplates the events that unfolded. The atmosphere is reflective as Jake contemplates his past decisions from that night. He expresses his anxiety, stating, he just didn't want to make the same mistake twice. His thoughtful demeanor reveals a deep concern about repeating previous errors, highlighting the weight of his introspection. The tension of the moment underscores his cautious nature as he grapples with his thoughts. In this moment, Adam leans closer to Jake, his voice filled with sincerity. He apologizes, stating that he was sorry for dogpiling on Jake, and that he didn't deserve that. The weight of his words hangs in the air, reflecting his deep concern for his friend. As the group gathers their resolve, one of them steps forward, asserting, "All right, guys, let's head further in and find a good place to set up." His voice carries a sense of determination, leading them toward the cave entrance, torch in hand. The others follow closely, their expressions revealing a mix of emotions. Startled by an unexpected sound, Adam grips the torch tightly. "What was that?" one of them exclaims, their voice echoing in the tense atmosphere. The group falls silent, each member reacting to the sudden disturbance. The group stands resolutely, preparing for battle. Adam leads the team with a confident demeanor, embodying bravery and determination. The ground shaking heavily, the atmosphere is intense, charged with anticipation as they ready themselves for the challenge ahead. The ground quakes violently, sending debris cascading down as an ominous tension fills the air. The tremors resonate through the scene, heightening the sense of impending danger. The ground shakes violently beneath them, a reminder of the impending danger. With urgency etched on his face, Jake gestures sharply, rallying his companions. "We need to go," he urges, his voice tinged with fear. The intensity of his emotions is palpable, pushing everyone to act swiftly. Time is of the essence as the group prepares to escape the looming threat. Moment of pure urgency, the determined leader shouts. Panic spreads as the group flees from the impending danger, rocks tumbling around them. As the group charges forward, hurrying to the exit, each one scared for their lives. The tension in the air is palpable, and the sound of falling debris echoes ominously as they advance into the unknown. Each character, driven by their own emotions, pushes forward, united in their quest despite the danger that looms. In a moment of desperation, Jake reaches out, his voice ringing with urgency as he calls out for Caroline. The scene is charged with tension, reflecting his frantic determination. Caroline, caught in her own anxious thoughts, reacts nervously to the chaos unfolding around her. Their emotions clash in the air, amplifying the gravity of the situation as they navigate the dangers that threaten to engulf them. As debris begins to rain down, Caroline's eyes widen in horror. She braces for impact, her determination faltering under the weight of alarm. She shouts, her voice cutting through the chaos. The tension in the air thickens, a tangible reminder of the dangers that surround her. As the tension in the air thickened, Jake lunged forward, the determination in his eyes reflecting his protective instinct as he grasped Caroline tightly, her expression shifting from fear to relief in the midst of their frantic escape. On a battlefield strewn with chaos, Jake struggled to regain his balance while Caroline, wounded yet resolute, fought to rise amidst the aftermath of a devastating attack. As a group of determined figures approached the fallen body amidst the rocky terrain, concern etched across Jake's face while Caroline observed with a worried glance and Joanna remained alert, ready for any unexpected dangers. With a furrowed brow and an outstretched hand, Jake approached Caroline, his voice laced with concern as he inquired about her well-being. In response, she offered a calm yet cautious reassurance, her relief evident as she acknowledged her state. As an urgent atmosphere enveloped the rocky wall, a group of friends called out for Jake, their voices echoing with worry and determination. In a moment thick with desperation, Adam reached out with urgency, calling for Caroline, whose absence hung heavily in the air. In a tense standoff, Caroline stood assertively, announcing their arrival, while Jake remained beside her, his concerned gaze reflecting the weight of the moment. In the dim confines of a cave, Jake's eyes darted nervously as he urged Caroline to keep silent, the air thick with an unsettling tension. Moments later, his worried tone heightened the unease, prompting her to listen intently, her own concern mirroring his unease about the instability surrounding them. In a shadowy environment, Jake and Caroline stood on high alert, the air thick with an unsettling tension as they sensed an unseen danger lurking nearby. Moments later, he warned her of the potential threats that could emerge from the darkness, his calm demeanor contrasting sharply with the growing unease in the atmosphere. As Caroline gestured towards the chaotic scene unfolding before them, her expression revealed a deep concern for the overwhelming number of rocks they faced. As Adam gestured towards the chaotic scene unfolding before them, his expression revealed a deep concern for the overwhelming number of rocks they faced, prompting Bertram to boldly declare his intent to break through the wall while Adam, filled with worry, urged caution against touching anything. In the dimly lit cave, a determined leader urged his companions onward, their footsteps echoing against the rocky walls as they navigated the labyrinthine paths. Moments later, he insisted that other routes existed, instilling a sense of hope that they would intersect somewhere ahead. As Jake pondered the complexities of their situation, he raised a finger to his chin, reflecting on the cautious choices that lay before them. Determined to find a solution, Jake resolved to venture deeper, expressing his commitment to meet halfway despite the uncertainties ahead. As tension filled the air, Jake's furrowed brow revealed his concern for Caroline, questioning how he could protect her amidst the looming threat. In a dimly lit cave, Caroline stood tall, her fierce gaze cutting through the shadows as the weight of her circumstances pressed upon her. Determined not to succumb to despair, she proclaimed her refusal to meet her end in such a place. As the group cautiously advanced deeper into the dark cave, Adam led the way with a determined expression, while he worried thoughts echoed her doubts about their decision. As the group paused in the dimly lit cave, Bertram voiced his concern, reflecting on the survival skills of their companions while Adam nodded in agreement, his anxious demeanor revealing the weight of their predicament. In the shadows of the cave, Bertram acknowledged the uneasy strength of Jake while recognizing Caroline's invaluable healing abilities, a mix of respect and anxiety evident in his thoughtful expression. Adam's intense gaze pierced through the darkness as he questioned the Bertram's emotions, seeking connection amid the uncertainty. In the tense atmosphere of the cave, Adam's intense gaze pierced through the darkness as he questioned Bertram's thoughts, seeking connection amid the uncertainty. Then, Bertram confidently asserted his agreement with Jake, emphasizing their collective need for strength to navigate the challenges ahead. Bertram leaned closer to Adam, his earnest determination radiating as he pressed for the truth amidst the weight of uncertainty. Moments later, the urgency in his voice cut through the tension, compelling Adam to confront the reality he had been avoiding. As the scene shifted, Jake lay in a pool of blood, his chilling grin suggesting an unhinged defiance against the chaos surrounding him. In the aftermath of the harrowing attack, Adam's face mirrored deep concern as he reflected on the unsettling behavior of Jake, who had narrowly escaped death. As worry etched deeper into Bertram's features, he acknowledged how crisis had transformed Jake into an unpredictable force, leaving his friends on edge. Stood resolutely Adam, wrestling with the weight of a crucial decision that could alter the course of his friendships. Moments later, he pondered the importance of trust, recognizing that his bond with Jake demanded faith despite the uncertainty swirling around him. We shift to Jake and Caroline stood side by side, the flickering torch in Jake's hand casting dancing shadows as they prepared to venture deeper into the unknown. Moments later, he led the way, his nervousness palpable, while she remained focused, scanning their surroundings for any signs of danger. As they delved deeper into the shadows, Caroline's gaze fell upon Jake's wound, her expression morphing into one of alarm as she noticed his pain. As concern etched across his features, Jake examined his wounded arm, realizing the injury must have resulted from the fall. With tenderness in her eyes, Caroline knelt beside Jake, eager to offer her healing touch as he winced in pain from his injury. Seeking reassurance, he expressed his concern, wondering if she was still angry with him, with the incident that happened. As tension hung in the air, Caroline focused intently on treating Jake's wounded arm, her determination shining through despite the friction between them. Then, she insisted that he must remain still, emphasizing that his injury mattered more than their recent argument. As nervous energy crackled between them, Jake gripped the glowing object tightly, drawing on his conversation training while searching for the right question to bridge the gap created by their earlier conflict. Caroline, with a furrowed brow, cautioned Jake about the perils of underestimating his own strength while he listened intently, a sense of receptiveness washing over him. Caroline, still learning the intricacies of his magical abilities, hesitated as she explained her limitations to Jake, who watched her with a concerned expression while offering his steady support. As Caroline pondered her decision, Jake reached out with a questioning hand, his curiosity evident as he sought to understand her choice to embrace the path of a healer. She stood tall and resolute, her voice steady as she articulated the reasoning behind her choice of the healer role. Then, with determination etched on her face, she emphasized that survival was the driving force behind her strategic decision. She then expressed her uncertainty about the tutorial while Jake listened attentively, offering his understanding presence. As she continued to voice her doubts about the tutorial, Jake's slight smirk revealed his indifference towards gaming, signaling a subtle defiance in their conversation. We then see past Caroline sitting on the edge of a hospital bed. Caroline reflected on the bittersweet memories of her younger brother's frequent stays in the hospital, while Jake listened attentively. As Caroline sat at her computer, immersed in the glow of the screen, she fondly recalled the times when they would connect through games despite the weeks spent apart. Frustration simmered as Caroline, in a dynamic pose, recounted how she was often pigeonholed into the role of a healer simply because of her gender. Fueled by her frustration, Caroline fiercely gripped the two swords, her eyes ablaze with determination as she expressed her longing to join the fight and make a real impact. With unwavering confidence, Caroline stood before the group, her sword raised as she pointed out the persistent struggle fighters faced in forming effective teams. With a sense of fulfillment, Caroline, the confident healer, examined the digital interface filled with party invitations, each one a testament to her growing reputation. As Caroline tended to Jake's injury with a determined glint in her eyes, aware that healing him would not only mend his wounds, but also prove her worth as a protector. As he took in every word she said, he nodded with a slight smile, acknowledging her cleverness with a sense of reassurance. Caroline confronted Jake, her frustration evident as she leveled an accusatory gaze at him. Moments later, the silence hung heavily between them, his unease palpable as he absorbed her pointed words without a reply. In a moment of deep reflection, Jake stood lost in thought while Caroline lingered behind him, her presence a comforting reminder of support. As he pondered his feelings, he realized that he might have overlooked the essence of who she truly was. With a reassuring smile, Caroline adjusted Jake's clothing, her attentive demeanor reflecting the relief that washed over him as he accepted her help. Determined to push forward, Caroline urged them to keep moving as they advanced together, her focus unwavering while Jake followed closely, exuding confidence and composure. As they ventured deeper into the darkness, Jake and Caroline reached a fork in the path, the flickering torch casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. As the flickering torchlight illuminated her anxious expression, Caroline clutched her staff tightly and sought guidance from Jake, her worry palpable in the tense air. Jake's concerned face reflected his anxiety as Caroline called out for him, hoping to pierce through the tension that enveloped them. Jake's serious demeanor intensified as he questioned if she felt the unsettling sensation in the air, while Caroline, standing close behind with a worried expression, listened attentively, her concern palpable in the tense atmosphere. Jake's serious expression deepened as he reflected on the troubling absence of his perception, feeling an unsettling weight of doubt about his abilities. Jake's unease intensified as he sensed something ominous lurking ahead, prompting Caroline to listen intently, her concern growing alongside his trepidation. As they ventured deeper into the dark cave, a chilling sensation enveloped them, revealing countless glowing blue eyes watching from the shadows. We cut to Jake, and Jake's smirk hinted at a dark revelation that sent a wave of unease through the air. Jake stands alone, his brow furrowed in contemplation, as he wrestles with the tumult of conflicting emotions swirling within him. Then, the weight of his uncertainty hangs in the air, making it clear that he is desperate for clarity about the feelings that perplex him. The atmosphere thickened with tension as Jake stood on the precipice of uncertainty, his instincts battling against an irresistible allure. Moments later, he gazed off-panel, weighing the danger that loomed before him while an anxious curiosity flickered in his eyes. In this curious moment, the duo prepares to dive into the unknown, with Jake confidently holding a torch and urging them to investigate further. Moments later, his bold determination ignites Caroline's surprise, prompting her to question the plan with a hint of skepticism. The air thickens with anticipation as they exchange glances, both excited and apprehensive about what lies ahead. He cautiously peers into the dark cave, a sense of anxiety etched across his face. The glowing eyes in the depths signal something formidable within. He considers the strength of whatever lurks below, reminding himself of the experience points that await those brave enough to venture forth. Caroline faced Jake, her determined expression cutting through the darkness as she asserted the urgency of their mission. Moments later, she clarified that their focus was not on gaining experience points, but on finding their missing friends, her voice resonating with conviction. Jake listened intently, a mixture of curiosity and concern crossing his features as he absorbed the weight of her words, amplifying the sense of urgency that surrounded them. Jake points forward with urgency, a torch illuminating his determined expression while expressing his concern about their friend's whereabouts. Moments later, Caroline listens intently, her face reflecting unease as the weight of uncertainty looms over them. Caroline's voice cuts through, her concern palpable as she warns him about the potential dangers ahead. Moments later, she gestures emphatically, suggesting that the alternative path at least aligns with the last known direction of their missing companions. The weight of uncertainty hangs over them, her worried expression revealing the high stakes of their decision as they contemplate their next move. The atmosphere is charged with determination as Jake animatedly proposes a risky choice, asserting that one path promises experience points while gesturing towards the dark unknown below. Moments later, his fervent strategy fills the air with urgency, igniting a mixture of hope and apprehension among Caroline. Caroline, facing Jake with exasperation, chided him for his unrealistic logic, the frustration evident in her tone as the weight of their conversation hung heavily in the air. Flickering torch illuminated Jake's face as he stood in deep contemplation, acknowledging his flawed reasoning amidst the heavy atmosphere of their conversation. As he stood in deep contemplation, acknowledging his flawed reasoning amidst the heavy atmosphere of their conversation. Fueled by anger, he defiantly declared his desire to fight, blood staining his features as he emphasized the seriousness of their situation. In response to his fervor, Caroline expressed her concern, urging him to recognize the danger they were in and the stakes involved. The tension in the air thickened as Jake, visibly agitated, raised his hands in protest, fervently defending his desire to grow stronger amidst the weight of Caroline's concerns. With fierce determination etched in her features, Jake confronted Caroline, her eyes ablaze with frustration as she challenged the very motives behind survival. With a finger pointed accusatorily, Caroline expressed her frustration, revealing a longing for the past that Jake struggled to defend against. Jake, alarmed and shocked, gestured emphatically as Caroline protested their fate, voicing the fear that had gripped them both. The serious expression, Caroline confronted Jake, challenging his selfishness as frustration bubbled within her, urging him to consider the group's needs instead of his own. As frustration lingered in the air, Jake let out a resigned sigh and finally agreed to follow the safer path, hoping to ease Caroline's concerns while grappling with his own sense of responsibility. In a shadowy realm illuminated only by the flickering flame of a torch, Caroline walked with determination, expressing her gratitude for Jake's unwavering support as they ventured into the unknown together. As the group cautiously moved deeper into the dark cave, Casper voiced his worries about the safety of their missing companions, his concern echoing in the tense atmosphere. He then expresses his worries about navigating the cave. Then, despite his reassurances, the lingering apprehension in his voice reveals the weight of the tricky path ahead, highlighting the challenges that lie before them. In the dim light of the cave, Casper strained to see through the enveloping darkness, frustration etched across his features as he wrestled with his limitations. He reflected on his heightened perception yet lamented his inability to discern what lay ahead, revealing the depth of his uncertainty. The group of characters huddled together, their expressions revealing the weight of their urgent discussion about the search for their missing companions. Moments later, one of them expressed his concern about the time, suggesting they might need to settle down if they couldn't find their friends soon, while another firmly insisted on continuing their search without hesitation. In the stillness of the night, Bertram calmly reassured Adam that their search could pause until morning, sensing the frustration simmering beneath Adam's compliance. We cut to Joanna as she walked with a focused determination, her concern for her injured leg evident as Bertram urgently pleaded with the group to consider her plight. Adam's resolute expression conveyed a sense of urgency, as he insisted that they couldn't stop until they knew everyone was safe. The group of adventurers stood at the entrance of the dark cave. The flickering flame of the torch illuminated their faces, revealing a mixture of courage and apprehension. Moments later, Jake led the charge into the shadows, his determination cutting through the ominous atmosphere. Inside the dimly lit cave, a sudden noise sent a shiver down the spines of the gathered adventurers as Adam urged the group to listen carefully, his expression a mix of concern and focus. With tension thick in the air, Adam commanded the group to ready themselves for the impending challenge, his serious demeanor setting the tone for the moment. In the oppressive darkness, Bertram crouched low, his determination palpable as he inquired if Casper could make out any shapes in the void. Casper, maintaining a calm yet cautious demeanor, expressed his uncertainty about their visibility, heightening the tension that enveloped them. The atmosphere crackled with tension as Casper, eyes narrowed and body tense, warned his friends about the imminent danger racing towards them. The surprise washed over Casper as he realized something, his astonished gaze meeting the danger, revealing his disbelief at the warning that had just pierced the thick tension of the moment. As the urgency of the moment thickened the air, Adam called out for Caroline, his voice laced with shock while Casper stood beside him, his worried expression betraying the weight of the impending danger. Emerging from the shadows, Jake and Caroline felt a surge of relief wash over them as they finally reunited with their friends. Moments later, their joyous exclamations filled the air, indicating that both parties were safe and sound. Bertram stood with an air of confidence, his inquisitive expression drawing the attention of those around him. He posed a question to the duo, his assertive demeanor hinting at a curiosity that suggested he was eager for information. In this tense moment, the main character expresses hesitation, his voice trembling with uncertainty as he reveals his concern, which heightens the tension in the scene. Just then Caroline cuts Jake off, exclaiming that no problem had arose. In a moment of assertiveness, Caroline confidently addressed the group, emphasizing that their journey had simply involved a lot of walking. Just then, Caroline voiced her concern about their sleeping arrangements, humorously suggesting they find one that wouldn't risk collapsing on them. As tension filled the air, Joanna, cloaked in mystery, suddenly recoiled in fear while clutching her mystical staff, startled by an unseen presence. With fierce determination, Caroline swung her weapon, striking the large spider as adrenaline surged through her veins. As adrenaline still coursed through her, a playful spark lit Joanna's eyes as she humorously apologized for her startled reaction to the spider. Casper knelt, his expression a blend of concern and wisdom as he urged her to reconsider her actions towards the small creature before her. As Casper proudly held a large green spider in his palm. Moments later, his excitement radiated, drawing the gaze of those nearby who were both intrigued and slightly apprehensive. In a dimly lit area, with a determined expression, Casper stepped forward, intent on relocating the spider to safety, his resolve echoing in the weight of his decision. In this gentle moment, Casper extends a hand toward a small green spider, his warm smile reflecting the compassion that defines him. Then, as he offers kindness, the creature seems to sense the safety in his presence, evoking a serene atmosphere amidst their surroundings. Suddenly, the tranquility shattered as Casper, alarmed and cautious, took in the overwhelming swarm of spiders encircling him, a stark contrast to the earlier serenity. Jake's intense gaze betrayed his urgent concern as he investigated the surroundings for a potential threat. Moments later, his analytical mind raced with the possibility of a nearby nest, heightening the sense of danger in the air. Casper's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the nervous energy that hung in the air as he noticed a spider creeping nearby. He reassured his companions that most spiders posed no real threat to humans, attempting to ease their growing anxiety. Just then, unbeknownst to the presence of a spider hovering close to his ear, Casper's heart raced as he felt the tension surge, contrasting sharply with the calm reassurance from his companion. Frantically reaching out, Adam called for Casper, his intense expression betraying the urgency of the moment as the atmosphere thickened with tension. Just then, as things couldn't get worse, A close-up revealed Casper's startled neck, vulnerable and exposed, as a sinister spider poised itself to bite him. As the tension escalated, Jake and his companions braced themselves, surrounded by numerous looming spiders that scuttled ominously, each movement heightening their sense of impending danger. As the group stood frozen, their faces reflecting the anxiety of confronting an unknown threat. Then, a voice broke the silence, filled with concern as one of them expressed the urgency of their situation. Moments later, the others shifted uneasily, each battling their own rising fears, while the determined man readied himself for whatever lay ahead. In the shadowy depths of an eerie night, Casper stood frozen in fear, his eyes wide as he faced an unseen threat, the haunting glow of green eyes piercing through the darkness. His heart raced as the feeling of helplessness washed over him, amplifying the overwhelming dread that gripped him tightly. Just then, ominous red eyes came into view against the black, desolate cave, signaling a looming danger that intensified the already palpable fear in the air. The intense gaze of Jake revealed a profound realization, cutting through the tension like a blade in the dark cave as he grasped the gravity of the impending threat. In an ominous setting, a large, menacing yellow spider loomed with an air of intimidation, its presence alone sending shivers down the spine of anyone who dared to glance its way.